All right, welcome into the 305, guys. Here at 135. If you're hearing us live, we always go with the 5 at the end. I'm Ethan Skolnick, and follow me, Ethan J. Skolnick, at 5 Reasons Sports. I got Alex Donno. You can follow him at Alex Donno. We're sponsored here by Prize Picks. Use the code 5, FIVE. And Alex has it up for you. There is the NFL board. This is week 1. This is go time. Okay, so see right there, you got Dak Prescott, half a passing yard. I would assume he doesn't get hurt before the first snap, so you should. Well, I shouldn't assume anything, but you should be okay there. You can see Tyreek Hill. Want to play him over half a running receiving touchdown. You get a little bit of a bonus there. Everything is there on Prize Picks. It is legal in the state of Florida. Use the code 5, FIVE. Put down your 5. Get your 50, play the NFL this weekend. We're going to have Prize Picks shows for Thursday night games, Dolphin games, Sunday night games, Sunday day games, Monday night games. We're going to have Prize Picks shows for everything, so we'll be able to help you out as you go through the process. Again, use the code 5, FIVE, put down your 5, get your 50. All right, it is cut down day in the NFL. The Dolphins have been doing some things, a couple of mild surprises, but before we get to that, Alex, and kind of the totality of where there are, Rasul Douglas is somebody that we've talked a little bit about. And I remember talking to Alfredo about him when I was out at training camp. Cornerback last of the Buffalo Bills, did not have a good season last year, but has had a pretty good career. And there was an issue about money, that he just really didn't want to come in for the money that the Dolphins were offering. He ends up coming in for 1 year at $3 million, so it's basically a cost-controlled contract. They cut Mike Hilton, who's one of the guys. They picked up him and Jack Jones. This secondary, we've talked about it. If there's been one spot on this team, now kicker's an issue again, but if there's been one spot on this team that was going to be kind of a work in progress, and they trade Ramsey. They don't bring back Fuller. They don't. You don't have a hat back there somewhere. Yeah, I'll get you one, Jazz. Thank you, Jazz. Appreciate it. By the way, Jazz, we got some Canes guys. We got some Canes over here. We got our Locked On Canes hosts, and then we got Jazz Santana, who hosts Six Rings Canes. So check out both of their programs. Obviously, big game. I heard there was a game this weekend. So anyway, and as the Dolphins are off. Can you talk about that one, Alex, on this show? I'm not really sure. Anyway,
I can a little bit. Anyway,
maybe Thursday.
I'm excited. Yeah, we'll talk about it Thursday.
Okay, you're excited. There's their analysis. There's the analysis. I think you got more on Six Rings Canes last night. Now I know you're a little bit limited, but we'll talk about it some on Thursday. But anyway, Rasul Douglas. So they pick him up as a corner. And Cater Co. So first thing to go back, they didn't decide to keep Fuller. Ramsey they traded. Cater Co, who was going to be their number one slot guy for sure, maybe a boundary corner, ends up getting hurt at a practice. Actually, I attended. I didn't think it was so bad at the time. He's done.
And nobody did until a few days, like 3 days later, we find out he's out for the season.
And the weird part about that, Alex, was Hilton was in the building already.
Yeah.
So they ended up signing Hilton, but they were considering him anyway, and then he didn't really impress. But the guy who has impressed is Jason Marshall Jr., who was a 6th-round pick from Florida. And I know you're not allowed to talk about Gators, but he's been really good in this class. Well, you choose not to. Where are we with this? I mean, this just feels like it's like their pass rush. It's like, oh, stud, as long as they're healthy. And the secondary is like, okay, whoever we can find, who's a veteran. Minka, of course, comes in at safety. They don't have John Holland anymore. What do you make of this secondary? Because I feel like this is the number one story with them.
Yeah, I mean, to me, it looks so obvious that it's going to be the weakness of this team, but sometimes things don't play out the way you think they're going to play out. And I'm trying to put a positive spin on this because I first of all, Anthony Weaver understands the weakness he has back there. So he is going to have to find ways to scheme around it. If your front seven can stay healthy, I'm really bullish about what the Dolphins have to offer. Let's not forget they just within the last week added Matthew Judon to add some serious pass rushing depth to what should already be a really good group. But you're going to have to rely on players who haven't stayed healthy to stay healthy, right? I mean, Jalen Phillips, if he can stay healthy, which he hasn't done for the better part of the last 3 years, he's a Pro Bowl caliber guy if you can get 17 plus games out of him, right? Bradley Chubb. So linebacker play has been better. So you got to hope that the front seven is good. It gives Weaver options to scheme around weaknesses at cornerback. And then, Ethan, there's also the possibility that, again, some of these corners we mentioned, Jack Jones, career hasn't worked out to this point, but a lot of it's been between the ears for him. Like, it's been disciplinary problems. If he can get his crap together, we know the talent is there. Like he said it the day he got here, I feel like I'm way too talented to be playing on my third team in 4 years. And I agree. So go out there and find some stability, right? I mean, Rasul Douglas, who the Dolphins just added, coming off, as you mentioned, a not good year in Buffalo, but he's been good in previous years. He's played with the Packers and with Buffalo in the past. So can he kind of return to form with new determination? Unfortunately, in recent years, there have been a lot of Gator busts. Hopefully Jason Marshall is not one of those, right?
Alex, there was also a Bills bust, Jordan Poyer. I think people are freaked out because Jordan Poyer was an op, basically. So we're hoping Rasul Douglas is not. But you're right, there have been a lot of Gator busts. But and I know some Dolphins fans didn't love the Jason Marshall pick at the time, but he has honestly, other than Minka, been their most impressive guy in the secondary. I guess you've got Storm Duck too, who I know some in our network have been pretty high on. I mean, it ain't Surtain and Madison, that's for sure. But I guess again the question is, like we've talked about, if Jalen Phillips, Bradley Chubb, Judon, if that group, and obviously Chop, if that group is going to get to the quarterback consistently, then there's probably not going to be a lot of plays down the field against this team. My concern is the short stuff that just bleeds you dry. And there was a lot of that in the preseason. Teams are going to, I think, be conditioned to get rid of the ball quickly. I don't know that Daniel Jones is the one who's going to take advantage of that. I feel like if you're ever going to have a break-in session against someone, that's probably the guy. Daniel Jones has faced the Dolphins once. I looked it up. He was with the Giants, and I remember the game. He had like 130 yards. He didn't really do much one way or the other. Didn't have a touchdown, didn't have a pick. We'll see how he fits there. I've never been a huge fan of his. I feel like you can flush him out of the pocket, and obviously they just don't feel comfortable with Anthony Richardson. But speaking of Gators,
Gator bust.
Right. Well, it's a little early, but it's not trending great.
The signs are there. What is this? His third year in the league?
Yeah, he'll probably be the Dolphins' backup quarterback to Tua in 2 years, because that tends to be what happened. If you're a bust like Zach Wilson, then you end up down in Miami. So let's get into this with the cuts and a couple of others. But again, the secondary is where this has been most interesting, and it looks like they're done, at least for now, there. But our Austin Dobbins has been posting on 5reasonsports.com. Spell that all out and go check it out. Current cuts reported: Mike Hilton, Mike Boone, Aaron Shamplin, Jackson Carman, Jalen McKenzie, Ethan Robinson, Ben Still, Addison West, Mason Brooks. There's not a lot of surprises here. A.J. Henning, Pharaoh Brown, who was a veteran tight end. Looks like they're going a little younger at tight end. I don't love their room, but we'll see what Waller ends up doing. Chris Myrick, Cameron Dantzler, Quentin Bell, only notable because he kind of popped at the beginning of training camp last year, but then didn't really do much. They've obviously got a lot of guys who can get to the quarterback. Matt Dickerson, Derek McClendon. That's one Dolphin fans are upset about. I wouldn't be surprised if he ends up in the practice squad. Theo Weiss.
Did you mention Ezukama yet?
Yes, just getting to him. Yeah. That's the most interesting thing to me, because it feels like this was like a 2-year developmental project that just didn't go anywhere. He had some injuries, but it looks like the Washingtons just passed him, right? Isn't that fair?
With Eric Ezukama, it felt like we never got off the runway with him, because there have been times preseason, maybe a few in-season reps where it's like, okay, we have something there, but he hasn't been consistently available. And then, like you said, the NFL stands for not for long. You've got, Malik Washington and the other what is the other Washington's first name?
Taj
Washington, who have clearly taken advantage of their opportunities, and Ezukama hasn't been able to.
Yeah, and Malik, I think, stands out right now as a potential number 3 receiver. I mean Westbrook, I guess, but I feel like it's going to be Washington. Patrick McMorris, John Saunders Jr., wide receiver Andrew Armstrong, Grayson Murphy, B.J. Adams. Again, not a ton of surprises. If I was to look at the biggest weaknesses on this team right now, if we identify them, backup offensive line is a potential problem. I am not that worried about the starters. I think they actually have their most promising starting group in a while. The rookies have been good. Not concerned about it. Backup offensive line, big problem. Kicker, problem. I've never been a Sanders guy, you know that. But now he's hurt, and I don't, he didn't kick in the last preseason game. Apparently it's worse than McDaniel originally let on. That's worrisome. You don't want to lose a game with a kick early. Again, Sanders, one of these guys, he's like Jason Friday the 13th. He just keeps coming back. I still feel like they need to fortify that. That's concerning. And then the secondary, but other than that, and the obvious stuff, is Tyreek engaged? Is Tua going to stay healthy? Like, I don't have huge concerns about a bunch of spots, but an O-line injury, a Tua injury, and really, if the secondary doesn't gel quickly, that's where, and the kicker situation now, where I see the biggest problems.
I mean, is there any buzz on who they might go after a kicker? Because I've seen some of the names who are out there.
Mm,
Matt Prater, who's like 100 years
mm.
old. He's
And
41. He's available. Cade York, Eddie
thank you.
Pinheiro, Zane
Eddie Pinheiro.
Gonzalez. I was
Yeah.
kind of and like I don't know. I feel weird saying this because I'm such a huge fan of the family. Very selfishly, I was kind of hoping that Andy Borregales would not
Borregales would
win,
get cut.
that he would not
Right.
win the Patriots kicker competition, and maybe we
Mm-hmm.
could stop. But good for him. He won the kicker's job with the Patriots. Now
Yep.
I'm going to have mixed emotions if he steps up to kick a game winner against the Dolphins, which is going to be weird. I'm just a huge fan of the Borregales family. I do notice, though,
Mm-hmm.
Jose Borregales, nobody's talking. I think he's in the CFL, or at least he was last year.
Mm-hmm.
Are they in season right now? Can we just take Jose? It's
I
a
think
Groza winner from 4 years. Just take him out of the CFL. Let's line him
I
up.
feel, Alex, like they are done. So maybe they could. That's a
Yeah,
possibility. I mean, there's got to be a Zendejas out there somewhere. I don't know if
yeah,
they'll be 72 years old. I'm worried about this. I really am. Like,
yeah.
I feel
Same.
like I've always been worried about Sanders beyond about 48 yards, but at least within 48 yards, you felt okay. Now I'm not really so sure. And we saw the punter try one in the preseason game, and I don't want to see that
Yeah.
again.
No, I don't
And
either.
they didn't, and Mike didn't even bother with it after that. So I've never understood this, Alice. I think that most teams, I know they don't want to keep the roster spot open, but you now have more practice squad spots. There's more flexibility on the practice squad. I don't know why teams don't keep a second kicker on the roster. I mean, is that
I mean,
crazy? Like, I don't know. Like, just in case. Like, it feels like that's important. Like that guy actually leads to
right.
points.
I mean, I feel like whether it's right or wrong, the assumption is there's always going to be a somewhat serviceable professional kicker on the street available to you. I
Right.
think that's just the assumption, right? Because again, there's
Right.
most teams only keep one. So
Yes.
there's more than 32 men in the world who can potentially make NFL kicks, right? So
I would hope.
you find a free agent if you're, and also Ethan, like, of course, the Dolphins have terrible luck, but honestly, what's the likelihood of a kicker suffering a significant injury? It doesn't happen that often, right? Usually when you see teams going after other kickers, it's usually just because your current kicker has the yips so bad,
Yeah.
because a lot of kicking is mental. Like, your current kicker just sucks, and so you go out and find another one. Like, leave it to the Dolphins to have a kicker suffer a significant injury. It happens, but it doesn't happen often.
No, it doesn't. Lindo Mario almost never got hurt, right? Wasn't he there for like
No.
7, 8 years? I mean, they had Uwe von Schaman, others. Pete
Yeah.
Stoyanovich, of course, maybe their best kicker, but he missed that kick
Yeah.
against San Diego that everybody remembers. So I am concerned about that for sure, because I don't want Mike going for it on 4th and 8 at the 34.
Just give him another
The
excuse
opposing
to do.
34.
You know he loves doing that anyway. Now it's like, wow,
Yes.
we got to go for it every
Right.
time.
Right. So they better solve that problem. But we'll continue to follow all these cuts. Again, I feel as we're heading towards the season opener, I don't think this was a preseason that wowed anybody. I don't also think it lowered expectations that much. They didn't, knock on wood, other than the Sanders thing, really suffer any major significant injuries. Ollie Gordon popped, so the fact that the Jalen Wright did not is less relevant, I guess. We'll see what A-Chain's status is. That is a little bit concerning. Tyreek seems to be on board, even if Tua doesn't seem as fond of him as he used to be. And Waddle hasn't gotten hurt yet. And Jalen Phillips and Bradley Chubb have. Jalen Phillips hasn't gotten hurt yet either. So I guess all of these are pretty good things, because I'm looking around the NFL and I'm like, okay, other teams have had it worse in terms of luck this preseason, right?
I agree with everything you said, except I'm not buying stock in all being good with Tyreek. I feel like, especially with the way Tua talks about him, like, I'm not buying in on Tyreek buying in. If I
my favorite moment that I was only out there 4 times in camp, but my favorite moment when I was out there in camp this year was when Tyreek admitted that he used to come out late to practice because he was scrolling to see what the media said about him on social media. And that just tells me, and that he was studying his playbook for the first time, that he hadn't done that until the new coaches came in. So Yeah, I have my concerns, but if he's on the field, he's still pretty good.
Yeah.
I think the likelihood of both him and Waddle making it to Week 8 healthy is light, which is why a guy like Malik Washington has an opportunity here, and maybe a bigger receiver in the mix, a couple bigger receivers in the mix would actually be a good thing. We'll see how Waller does also. All right, Alex, appreciate it. Use the code 5 FIVE, prizepicks.com. We'll be back on Thursday. I think I'm going to let Alex talk about the game he wants to talk about on Thursday if he'd like to.
I would love
Have a
to.
good one.
I'd be more than happy to, because I've got some thoughts.
He has thoughts. It's going to be exciting. Have a good one, everybody.
Yeah.